How's it going, everyone? Byron here with Riders Domain. We're reviewing the Aprilia Shiver 900. This is the 2018 model. This is a fantastic bike for a lot of reasons, but there are a few drawbacks as well. To start with, it's an incredible looking machine. It's got really aggressive lines, exposed internals. It's got that really great looking Street Fighter naked bike look to it. I love the under the seat exhaust out back, the dual pipes coming out there. And you know, when you fire this thing up, I mean, it just sounds mean. The 900cc V-twin has a really low tone growl to it, especially in the low RPMs. So I mean, this bike is exciting just, you know, from a sensory standpoint the moment you fire it up. And once you get rolling, I mean, it continues to provide. The low end of this engine is fantastic. You know, throttle response is really precise, and it's, you know, you get up into the mid-range and you still got so much pull. Aprilia gives us numbers, you know, around 66 pound-feet of torque, right in the middle of the rev range, about 6,000, 6,500 RPM, and you get 95 horsepower at the crank. And peak torque comes, you know, in the middle of the rev range, around 6,000, 6,500 RPM. But honestly, this thing pulls the instant you twist the throttle. Now, what's nice about that is, you know, it's even in sport mode, because this does have a fairly sophisticated electronics package. Also, you know, it's not unmanageable power. I wouldn't recommend this bike for a beginner rider by any means, but, you know, somebody with some finesse at the controls is, you know, really going to have, you know, an awesome time with this, even if you're just tooling around town. You know, the low range and mid-range torque of the V-twin makes this bike really well suited for a variety of riding scenarios. You know, whether you're, you know, a commuter zipping around town, you know, dodging in and out of traffic, you know, or blasting up the mountain roads. It's quite a bit of engine though. On the highway at 65 miles an hour in 6th gear, I mean, you're hovering around 4,000 RPM, and in that range, you know, the engine's a little sluggish. I mean, you drop 2 gears to get that real peppy response. So, you know, there's a lot of potential with this bike for sure. As far as the transmission goes, the movement between 1st and 2nd gears is pretty abrupt, and it wants to pop into 2nd gear. So you have to, you know, kind of fiddle with it to get into neutral when you're at a stop, for example. And even though Aprilia claims that they've lightened clutch pull by about 15% over the previous version of the Shiver, you know, the clutch is still pretty tight, pretty taut. The nice thing about the clutch though is engagement is pretty instantaneous, and it's really progressive. So, you know, you're not lunging off the line or doing anything weird like that. And you've got a real good feel for where the friction zone is, which I appreciate. The braking package on this is pretty solid also. You know, you've got dual discs out front. You've got, you know, really responsive feel on the front brake particularly. You know, it allows you to kind of trail brake into corners with confidence, and you know, when you do need it, you've got plenty of stopping power with a good healthy pull at the lever. The single disc rear brake is similarly good. There really was no problem pulling this thing to a stop. And for the suspension package, it's nice because you do get some adjustment options out front. You get preload and rebound adjustments, same at the rear, and that proved really helpful. We had Dave Moss from Dave Moss Tuning in the studio and hosting a bike event here, and he helped us get this bike dialed for my particular height and weight. When I received the bike, it was pretty soft at the back and the front was pretty stiff, so I was kind of riding like this. But once we got this thing leveled out, the jouncy feeling was absolutely removed, and dipping in the corners was really smooth. The bike was well composed and really balanced. It's also got a pretty comfortable cockpit too. I mean, everything from the seat foam and the upright seating position to the layout of the handlebars. For my frame, it was darn near perfect. And you do get adjustable levers, both the brake and the clutch, so you can tailor the fit even further to your size, to your hands, without having to do any wrenching or anything like that. And as I mentioned, you do get electronics options. You get 2-channel ABS. You do get 3 different riding modes: a sport, a road, and a touring. Sport is maximum engine power. Rain cuts horsepower to about 70 HP, and touring, mellows out the delivery a little bit, so you're not getting that snappy pull you do in the sport mode. You definitely notice a difference in throttle response when you switch to rain mode. It's a lot smoother. Touring mode as well. You're not like I said, you're not getting that snap like you do in sport mode. And I honestly preferred sport mode. And kept it there for the majority of the time that I was on the bike. You also get traction control, and we rode this quite a bit in some of the sketchier months, some of the winter months when there was a lot of crud on the road, slick roads, things like that. So I kept this thing in the highest level 3, and never had any problem. It was more of a a peace of mind kind of thing, because I also wasn't pushing so hard as to get any slip in the first place. But for riders that are going to be encountering different types of roads or uncertain about what they're facing, it's really nice to have that adjustable traction control package. And Aprilia makes it possible to change all of the settings on the fly, so you don't have to pull over to the side of the road, dial through the menu and find what you're looking for. The instrument panel is a TFT display. It's really easy to read. There's a lot of information in there, but you don't have so many buttons and levers to push that you aren't going to figure this out in an afternoon riding around. Now, some of the things about the Shiver 900 that are a little bit troublesome for me are, to start with, is its weight. This thing is listed around 480 pounds. Now, when we compare that to its larger sibling, the Tuono V4 1100, this is about 20 pounds more than the V4. And you can feel it too, especially at a standstill, when we move this thing around in the studio or in the office. I mean, just rolling it around, it is really top heavy. And you don't feel it quite so much on the road once you get rolling, but it's definitely something, especially for a naked bike, that it'd be nice if they could find a way to cut the weight a little bit, because it's a little bit too heavy. And as much as I like the dual exhaust coming out underneath the seat, it does generate quite a bit of heat. That's kind of nice on a cold day. You keep the back of your legs warm, but when you're riding around in 80, 90 degree temperatures, it gets a little bit uncomfortable. And though I didn't throw a passenger on here, I can only imagine that it's going to be even more intense for somebody riding on the back with their legs, right up against the pipes. This bike also, rings in just under 10 grand. It's got an MSRP of 9,399. So it is going to, put a little bit of a dent in your wallet. You do get some pretty premium stuff, though. I mean, the adjustable suspension, the ride modes, the traction control, the electronics package as a whole, the braking package, everything. I mean, and just the look and the design and the craftsmanship and build quality of the Aprilia. it's something that, if you really want this bike, that price is going to be more than acceptable. We got about 33, 34 miles to the gallon, and it's almost 4-gallon gas tank. So, it doesn't have a super great range either. So, if you're logging lots of miles commuting, it may be a little underwhelming in that regard too. So for me, this bike would be perfect if I was doing 30, 40 miles a day going to and from work, or, taking it out for the weekends and logging, a couple hundred miles running through the mountains. I mean, it's really stable and it does really well on the freeway too. So, if you've got some long, sort of boring stretches to cover to get to where you need to be, this bike's going to perform really well. Plus, it's something you're going to, get back to your garage and tuck in at night. You're gonna want to go out and polish it up and keep it clean. It's something that evokes something, at least in me. I want to go out and ride. I want to be with this bike. I want to be around this bike, and I think that's part of what Aprilia is shooting for here. At the end of the day, for me, this bike is all about sensory appeal and feeling good on a motorcycle. It looks phenomenal. It sounds phenomenal. It performs really well. I mean, the engine is solid. Attendant components work perfectly in harmony with everything else. I mean, it's an Italian sexy bike, man. This is one of those motorcycles that you dream about. It's not necessarily about practicality with the Shiver 900. If you're looking for a head-turning, sporty, really well-dialed V-twin street fighter, man, you aren't going to do much better than this bike. If you guys want to know anything more about the Shiver 900, leave us a comment. And don't forget to subscribe to Rider's Domain for more motorcycle reviews.